Yes crew, this is your boy Stanton and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and in this video we're going to look at 4 tips to help those pads move and evolve over time. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Okay guys, so we just got Serum opened up here and I've already made the patch, so I'll just play that now. And that, guys, is made up of an A-7th chord. So for these type of jungle pads, you want to be looking at creating -7 chords or -9th chords. So here I've chosen an A, so I've started on A2 and I've gone up to G3, and then I've knocked it up an octave from A3 to G4. So that's a good starting point if you want to try and make jungle pads. So tip number 1, apply an LFO to the filter cutoff so we can get some more movement. So I'm just going to grab this crosshair and pull it over onto the filter cutoff here, and what you'll hear now, we get this like wow wow type of sound, which is the LFO is opening up the filter cutoff on a quarter rate. So I'm just going to push up the modulation amount to 100 so we can hear that now. But personally, I want that a little bit slower, so I'm just going to have it running over 2 bars. And then from here, I'm just going to pull down the modulation amount. Now, a good example of this is Instinct's track Check 1. If you listen to that tune after the tutorial, you'll hear in one of his pads that he's got floating up in the mix that it's got a really slow modulation time on the LFO. So check that out once you've listened to this and watched it here. So back to the LFO. So that just sounds a little bit more floaty and hypnotic now. So that leads us to tip number 2. I'm just going to add in the dimension expander. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply LFO2 to this hypermix here after I've gave it a little bit more size. So as you can hear there, the pad's just widened a little bit and it's covering the stereo field a little bit more. Now what I want to do is I'm going to apply LFO2 onto the hypermix, and what you'll hear now when I press play is you'll hear it start to add in more harmonics, and we'll get this type of super saw flange type of sound. And we see what it sounds like over some quarter notes. It's a little bit much for me, so we'll put it back to a bar. What I like to do is I like to have a little bit of variation with the LFO rates. So on LFO 1, I've got the LFO running over 2 bars, and then LFO 2, I'm going to choose 1. Now what we could do is we could just pull up the mix a little bit to around 25 and then back off the modulation amount. %, wetness and about 40% of modulation is always like the sweet spot for me. So that's tip number 2, guys. Apply LFO modulation to your effects. Now I'm going to go to tip number 3 and I'm going to pull up this EQ. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out some bottom end. And then on this frequency here on the EQ2, I just want to choose this notch type here. And I just want to push it up a little bit. To around 8 dB so I can hear it affecting. And then what I'm going to do from there is I'm just going to pull LFO 3 over onto this frequency here so that it sweeps back and forth over the frequency spectrum. Now we'll set it about a quarter note just so it's quick. Now for me that's still a little bit too quick, so let's maybe put it on a half note. You could back off the modulation amount. Is rather nice. So what we could do is we could just widen this cue a little bit. Like we say, we're getting more of that wow wow sound, starting to sound a little bit more hypnotic. Let's just boost it a little bit more. Let's just see what it sounds like running over a bar. Sounds rather nice. But let's just pull the gain down, see what it sounds like if we start notching it down a bit more. And you just want to experiment with stuff like this as well, because you never know what you'll find, you know. A lot of the time with sound design, you just want to experiment with things and things will start to click. So that, guys, is tip number 3. Apply an LFO to your frequency so it's starting to sweep a bit more on your EQ. Now, I'm just going to go back to our oscillator section for tip number 4. And what we're going to do is we're going to use some wavetable synthesis to apply an LFO just to the position of it so it'll sweep across all the wavetables. So I'll show you what it sounds like now on the basic shapes. This will sound a little bit odd because on the basic shapes it goes from sine to square to sawtooth and so on, so it'll just audition all the different types of waveforms in the basic shapes. So but I'll show you anyway. Now I'm just going to pull open and add in like 100% of modulation. It's a little bit quick, so I'm just going to have it on a bar, but let's just change it to maybe basic CJW, just as this is just one waveform, so it'll start scouting across the wavetable position rather smooth. And I'll show you what that sounds like now. And as you can see here, it's auditioning the types of wavetable positions, and we can see that here just by changing this view. So like I say, that's just evolving over time, just so we can create more of an evolving pad. But let's just change oscillator A to basic MG and apply LFO4 to the wavetable position on oscillator A, so that both wavetable positions are changing. Just change the rate. Over 2 bars is nice for this one, because like I say, it makes it sound really hypnotic. We could maybe back off the modulation amounts. But let's just say we want something more digital in there, or something that sounds a little bit more like an effect for some texture. Could maybe choose a different waveform. And you know, you could just audition these types of waveforms, see which one you like. Now, what I'm going to do is we can get a little bit more in depth with these LFO shapes as well. So right now, we've got just a triangle shape. So let's just pull this point over to the left there and draw in another plot point. And what you'll start to hear now is the modulation amount will follow this LFO shape. So the good thing about Serum is we can create our own LFO shapes and get really deep with stuff like this. So already there we're starting to get a bit more of a complex pad. Now let's just try adding some more plot points. And like I say, you can create your own LFO shapes here. Could even slow it down to 4 bars. So that, guys, is tip number 4. Use wavetable positions to create a more evolving pad sound. So let's just go back to our basic shapes, to the pad sound that we had originally. And I'm just going to turn off, well, I'll bypass it, the modulation on the wavetable positions. So we're back to our original pad sound. And then what we could do from here is we could also add in a flanger. And we could add in another LFO on the flanger. Just so it sounds a little bit more atmospheric. We could add in some chorus, pretty standard, but we want to get that analog warmth in there. And let's just add in some compression. And we'll just add some reverb. Could maybe boost up the size if you want. And we've got it on the hall preset there, so it'll just sound like we're in a big open space. Could add in some delay. And so on, guys. So there you go. There's 4 tips on how to make your pads move and get them to evolve a little bit more. Okay guys, so just to recap, we've looked at 4 different tips on how to make your pads move and how to get them to evolve a little bit more. We've also looked at applying an LFO to the filter cutoff. We've also looked at applying LFO to certain effects. We've also applied an LFO to a frequency sweep, so it's moved back and forth, so it can create a bit more of an interesting texture. We've also looked at applying an LFO to a wavetail position, so that we can get more of an evolving pad sound. Go away today, take what you've learned from this session and start implementing these techniques into your own tunes. Also, if you want to get my help personally, you can shoot me an email and we can discuss things further. Or, if you like, you can donate to the channel via the link below, where you can help me keep making these videos, and in return, I can help you keep taking your music production skills further. Let me know in the comment section below which is your favourite track with big epic pads in, whether it be jungle or D&B or tech house or minimal or garage. Let me know, let's have a chat. And last but not least, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching, peace.